There are a number of motivations for President Trump to seek re-election. Among them may possibly be a desire to avoid the laundry list of legal problems he may face once he's out of the Oval Office. The U.S. Constitution does not establish whether or not a president can face criminal prosecution, nor has the Supreme Court addressed the issue. However, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel has long held a sitting president cannot face indictment. That is the policy upheld by special counsel Robert Mueller after his years-long investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Due to that policy, first established during the Watergate scandal, Mueller chose not to charge Mr. Trump with obstruction of justice, although he did not exonerate him either. The president has often tried to get the Justice Department to fight on his personal behalf. His latest attempt came this week in the defamation suit filed by writer E. Jean Carroll. She alleges Mr. Trump raped her in the 90s. A federal judge denied the DOJ's attempt to defend the president, saying Carroll may pursue the suit against him as a private citizen. Still, Attorney General Bill Barr has often been willing to at least try and fight those battles. But that protection goes away if the president loses this November. And if Mr. Trump does lose, a cascade of pending lawsuits and criminal charges may all strike at once. David Yaffe-Bellany examined this issue for Bloomberg News. He's a reporter covering the federal courts and joins us now from Washington. David, welcome. Thank you for being with us. Let's start with potential criminal charges. What issues could the president face?
So President Trump faces the threat of criminal charges on two different fronts, basically. There's a possibility of federal criminal charges brought by the Justice Department that would likely target some of the misconduct that's sort of widely known, like the instances of possible obstruction of justice that Robert Mueller outlined in his report on Russian interference in the election. Federal charges could also focus on the campaign finance violations that resulted in Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, being sent to prison. Those are the kind of federal level threats. The Manhattan District Attorney, Cy Vance, is conducting his own investigation at the state level, exploring what seems to be the possibility of kind of broader misconduct by Trump and his businesses, possible bank or insurance fraud. So on both those fronts, President Trump will be vulnerable if he loses the election.
And so do you believe that some of these prosecutors are just waiting to play their hand, just hoping to sidestep this issue of executive privilege altogether?
It's possible. It's certainly the case that one of the reasons that Trump never faced criminal charges for the possible obstruction of justice documented in the Mueller report was this kind of longstanding Justice Department policy against indicting a sitting president. So in theory, that obstacle is removed once he's no longer president. Now, there are all kinds of other reasons that federal prosecutors might still want to avoid bringing that type of case. It would be politically explosive. It would likely consume the early months of the Biden administration. So I don't think it's necessarily the case that prosecutors are just biding their time, waiting for Trump to leave office. There are all sorts of other considerations that could come into play.
Okay, and David, what about possible action against the president's businesses? How could Trump Inc. face legal issues?
Sure. So Trump's companies are under investigation in sort of two separate jurisdictions in the state of New York. The New York Attorney General, Letitia James, is conducting a civil investigation of sort of real estate dealings by Trump's company. At the moment, like I said, that's a civil matter, and so it wouldn't result in criminal charges, but people have speculated that she could uncover instances of criminal misconduct, and potentially the investigation could switch gears at some point. So that's one threat facing the president. Then there's also the Manhattan District Attorney's investigation that I mentioned, which is also looking into Trump's business dealings, and in particular those kind of broad categories of bank and insurance fraud. We don't know exactly what he's examining. It's an ongoing investigation. We can just sort of surmise from what the office has said in court filings that those kind of broad categories of offenses are under consideration.
And David, earlier we mentioned the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit. Are there any other legal actions pending against the president for his personal conduct when he was a private citizen?
Yes, there are a whole slew of civil lawsuits filed by various people against Trump alleging various forms of misconduct. His own niece, Mary Trump, has accused him and his siblings of defrauding her out of her inheritance. So that's a case that could speed up if he's no longer president and isn't able to cite his responsibilities as president as an excuse for not complying with various requests. A group of anonymous investors has also sued him and a couple of his children, claiming that he basically advised them to invest in a marketing scheme that eventually went belly up. That's another case that could accelerate once he's no longer president. And in addition to E. Jean Carroll, he's been sued for defamation by another woman, Summer Zervos, who also claims that she was sexually assaulted by him and that he defamed her in the course of denying those allegations.
All right. Well, David Yaffe-Bellany, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.